Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. DIY Dad here on a beautiful and very bright spring morning here in Minnesota. Sorry about the wind, it's a little breezy today. But what we're going to be doing today is another crazy, ill-conceived, figure it out as we go sort of project to build a surface level contact deck on top of that patio right back there. There's going to be some challenges with this. You can kind of tell probably even from this angle that patio is not exactly flat. But it has stopped sinking finally, so we'll be able to deal with the one thing about this backyard that I've hated since we moved into the house. So here we go. So this is the rear patio in our home. It's a 12 by 12 concrete slab. And you can see from looking at it that when they poured this patio, or when they prepped the ground at least, they didn't do a great job. If you kind of look at this line here, that one is actually level, and then that one very much not. And then this corner right in the middle pops up on this one and that one. So we have some issues. It's not flat. We've tried or looked at sand jacking and a few things like that to try to level out the patio, but it really doesn't serve the need that we want for our family. What we'd like to do is put a shade structure back here, and we have a tent enclosure that we've used on our deck upstairs, that one, that we took down, that we want to repurpose here, which means I need a 12 by about 15 foot structure to attach to. This is a 12 by 12 pad. That's not going to work out. So we're going to build a pad, or build a deck rather, that I can hook that tent enclosure to. So a couple challenges with this. My base is not flat. I'm not going to be removing this concrete. I'm actually going to use this as the main structure. So we're going to build essentially two decks that are bound together. I'm going to build a 12 by 12 that roughly sits on top of this pad, and we'll walk through that whole process as we go. And then over on this side where there's the hill, I'm going to be building about a 6-foot extension. For the 12 by 12, I'm going to be using pressure treated 2x4s. They're green treated 2x4s. Now I know what you're thinking. 2x4 is not big enough for deck framing. Normally you'd be correct, but if we're using that pad to deal with the bounce issue and to give it the support that it needs, we should be fine. And then here where we have to cantilever out a little bit, I'll have 3 posts, and then we'll be using 2x6 pressure treated for that extension, since it'll have to bear a little bit more weight. So I'm at a point where I'm going to start getting some measuring done and the outer frame cut, and that brings me to just a tip / reminder if you're doing any project like this and you're using dimensional lumber that you buy from like a hardware store or anything like that, is that these sizes, these are all 12-foot boards. That's a nominal size, which means it has a little bit of wiggle room. To demonstrate what I'm talking about, I have my tape measure here, and you can see that this board is actually about 144 7/8 inches. And then if I move to the next one over, or even 2 over here, so we were at 144 7/8. This one is at 145 and a little bit over, about 1/8. So even just there, you can kind of see the difference in these lengths. You're going to want to make sure if you're doing anything that needs to or wants to be square, you take the time to actually cut these to a predictable and standard size. So for me, I'm going to be running these probably to about 144.5, but I'll go through all of the material that I have to make sure that nothing is shorter than that. So I'll show you a bit of the method to my madness here. That piece, or that face right there, is level. So I have the board based off of that, and it runs across to here, and I've got it all leveled out. You see there's a little spacer block underneath, and that's kind of the theory of how this is going to work. If you look down that side, you'll see it's level there. That board is actually level, and the patio comes up, and then it's straight to there. This face is also level, so I'm going to run my backboard from here straight across to there, and then there will be a board that goes from there and connects to that guy hanging off the edge of the pad. So it doesn't matter if the pad comes up a little bit, my framing will go around it. So we're at a decent spot to stop for this step. I have the outer frame of my 12 by 1110 deck completed. So there's just little mending plates to hold it for now. I will be running ledger lock screws to the outside, but you can kind of see the issue. Each of these 4 boards is level. So obviously high spot when they come down to level. This one runs level there, level as well, but you can see the concrete is intruding quite a bit. And then we have quite a gap down in that corner where it's sunk the most. So what I'll be doing next is looking at the stringers. So for each stringer, I'm going to pre-cut them to the length, and then I'll place them and see where my high point is when they are level and how much I need to take off. I think I can get maybe 1 on that side if I'm running 16 on center, maybe, before the concrete is up high enough that it's going to be a problem. So most, if not all, of these stringers are going to have to be somewhat adjusted, even on this side, because you can see this pad, even though it's kind of flat on that corner, it does rise up in the middle. So for each and every one, and I won't film myself doing this, but I'm going to measure, place the stringer in place, figure out how much I have to take off of it, and then I'll rip it down with my table saw and then mount it in place, and then move on to the next one from there. So do kind of a mid-project update here. I have all of my framing done. You can see some of these boards ended up running sideways, others were run vertical, and I've started shimming. So you can kind of see over on this side. I'm starting putting my shims in. I'm going to have them about every 2 feet, 1.5 feet, somewhere in there. Using all of the scrap that I have left over from ripping down my joists on the ones that are run vertical. Some of them you can see I had to do a little bit of crazy work. Others were a bit more straightforward than that. This one piece right here was soaking wet, as pressure treated wood sometimes is, and burned out my saw in the process of cutting it. So that was fun. But yeah, I'm at a pretty good spot now. Everything is level. I've been checking it as I went in all directions. So I know that as I was going and as weight was going on, I was shimming these so that we wouldn't get sag on that outer board. So that's level, and it's level this way, and it's level this way, and it's level that way. So we're in a good spot. So I'm going to finish shimming this out, just essentially putting spacers in between the bottom of these pieces and the concrete, and then on these that are turned sideways, because they allow a bit more flex, I'm checking the level on those as I go so I can kind of straighten them out as I run. And then at that point, this deck will be done and ready for decking. But before I do that, I'm going to build the extension. And the extension I'm going to do more traditionally, so I'm making it out of 2x6s. And it's just going to be your simple joist hangers and basic frame, lining it up with the same 16-inch on center. Again, I apologize about the breeze, but reached my stopping point for today. The sun's getting pretty low. The main deck is completely done and shimmed. I've got all my gaps in, all my spacers placed, all of that's ready to go. I have the cantilever portion, the extension of the deck, the outer frame put together, and I'm using just a temporary board to hold it while I get the posts sorted and all of that taken care of, which will be what I'll do tomorrow. So tomorrow's order of business, I'll get the posts, I'll cut the stringers that run for the joist for the cantilever. It'll be a whole lot easier. I have nothing, no crazy cuts or extra spacers I have to do, just regular straight old deck framing. And then I'll get those hung and deal with the posts, and we will be good to go. So checking in midway through putting the footers or supports for my posts in place, I'm using these threaded spikes that run down into the ground. And because of the soil that I'm hitting a bunch of clay, and they don't turn as easy as I'd like them to. In the instructions, it says take a piece of rebar and drop it through that hole at the top, but I don't exactly have rebar laying around. What I do have is a chunk of scrap green treated 2x4. So essentially I've just clamped it to this, and that gives me the leverage that I need to turn this quite easily. So if you're using these and you're struggling to put them in, and you don't happen to have just random chunks of rebar laying around, give this a shot. Works pretty well. Well, I guess ignore that pro tip and let me add a different one. Don't use these plastic screw-in things. They're supposed to be ABS, impact rated, everything else, but the second you sink a post into them, they just shear right in half, which is a lot of fun. So of 3, 2 of them are broken. So I'm now going to be pulling these out and swapping for the metal ones that I should have used in the first place. Good times. So We ran out of time and more importantly ran out of materials, so this is the, I guess, the next stopping spot for us until tomorrow. I have all but 2 of the joists installed. You can see I went with a more traditional beam and footer setup after these plastic screw-in stakes that I had shattered on contact. So yeah, decided to pull those back out. Went with a more traditional layout for that. So I've got my doubled up beam running across here, and then my 2x6 joist running. So of all but 2 of them, so I'll be getting another 12-footer tomorrow, cutting that down, and then picking up the decking, and that just goes across the top, running that way, and we'll be done. Well, as often happens with these things, life got in the way, and I never actually got to recording the last portion of this video, so we'll go ahead and do that now. The deck is done. You can see we've already moved into it. It's a patio enclosure that we had from one of the other decks on our house, which is up there, that we moved down here. Came out really nice. It's very stable. Really like the way that it turned out, and the kids have obviously moved into it already and are enjoying it. So much better use of the space than the previous kind of bent patio that we had. So yeah, all in all, decent project. We'll see how long it lasts. Hoping we'll get some time out of it. We're looking at putting in a bit of a bigger pool than that one. So I'll probably be expanding this deck to go out around an above ground pool that we're gonna put in place. But that'll be covered in a later video. So I owe you a dad joke, like most of these videos, and I'll point out the one thing I forgot to do is I haven't trimmed the ends of these boards. So now, much like a dealer at a casino, I still need to cut the deck. That's going to wrap us up for this project. Remember, with any DIY project, the most important step is just to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. No one's going to see the flaws unless you point them out to them, which you inevitably will. So have a great day, stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.